guys, it's Rachel here, and today I'm going to be filming for you guys kind of a different video for the year. And today I'm going to be filming for you guys my top 5 most disappointing books of the year. Now, as I similarly to what I did with my overhyped books list, this is just a list for myself that I found of books that I thought were kind of disappointing. They weren't necessarily outright bad books. They just weren't necessarily for me. So if you enjoyed that book, then that's great. I'm glad that it reached you. Just for me personally, I didn't really enjoy it. Some of these books, I love the books by the other books by this particular author. This just wasn't the book for me. So these aren't going to be in any particular order. These are just the 5 books that I felt were really disappointing. So at number 5 or whatever, the first book I have is City of Bones by Cassandra Clare. Now this is one of the most disappointing books that I've ever read. I have talked about this book a lot on my channel being one of the most disappointing books that I've ever read. I don't understand the hype, nor do I understand the love for this book. Now granted, with the progression of the series, it may be absolutely amazing, but I dislike this book so much that I don't even want to continue with it, and as a result of that, I'm getting rid of all the books for it. I'm not sure what it is about this book that doesn't set with me. I think it could be a mixture of the fact that I don't like Clary as a character, I don't like Jace as a character, and I just didn't think that, although of course this is not a realistic world, the Shadowhunter world is not a realistic world, I don't feel that Clary's reaction to the things that happen in the events that happen in this book are realistic of what a normal person would do in the event that you find out that there's a whole nother world. I just felt like Claire was too accepting of what was going on. I don't know, this book wasn't for me. It was really disappointing for me. I don't know that I expected to love it. You know, it wasn't for me, so yeah. The next book on my list is going to be Where She Went by Gail Forman, and this is the second book in the If I Stay companion duology by Gail Forman. Now I read If I Stay this year as well, and it's not my favorite book of the year, but I did enjoy it quite a bit. It's very quick, very fast paced, very tragic, but it wasn't my favorite. Like I said, it wasn't my favorite book of the year, but I still enjoyed it enough that I wanted to continue with the duology. So if you don't know what If I Stay is about, it's about a young girl who her parents or her family tragically dies in a car accident, and she is kind of hanging in the balance between life and death, and she has to decide if she's going to stay or if she's gonna go. Where She Went takes place 3 years after the events of the first book, and this follows our Adam, which is the love interest in If I Stay. As much as I liked Adam in the first book, I could not stand Adam in the second book. He was so whiny and so depressed and just poor me, and it killed me. I like to see strong male characters, and he was just so weak and whiny in this book, and it was so disappointing for me because a lot of people really like Where She Went. A lot of people like Adam in Where She Went, but I just didn't really care for it. It was okay, it was fast paced, I read it really fast, but this was not my favorite book, and I'm curious if they're going to make this one into a movie, because if I wanted to say If I Stay, I would see it, but I would not want to see Where She Went because it would just be crying for 2 hours. The next book on my list is going to be Ruin and Rising by Leigh Bardugo. Now this is the 3rd and final book in the Grisha trilogy, and for me this was an extremely disappointing ending to the trilogy. Now a lot of people really liked the ending. They really liked this trilogy as a whole, and as a whole the trilogy is okay. It's not my favorite book I've ever read, it's not my favorite trilogy I've ever read, but as a whole it's okay. But when I read Ruin and Rising, I was just so disappointed in it. It did not end the way that I wanted it to end, and to be honest with you, I don't even know how I wanted it to end, but it wasn't that way. Like, there were definitely events in Ruin and Rising that I didn't see coming and was upset by, but as a whole I felt like the end just kind of took the place of a romance novel. It was mostly the relationship between Alina and the guy she chooses. I was kind of like bleh about it. It wasn't my favorite ending to a trilogy. It wasn't terrible. It just wasn't my favorite ending for a trilogy. I've said it before, I can't really explain to you what Shadow and Bone is about because it's really hard for me to explain it for some reason. But it's about a young girl who finds out that she is a Grisha, and she's a very powerful Grisha, and just how other people want her powers. And I don't know, it was okay. It was disappointing for me because I was hoping it was going to be something amazing because so many people were talking about how amazing it was, but it just wasn't anything amazing for me. So the last two books are going to be either like, oh my god, it's going to get me a lot of hate, or it's going to get me like, I don't know. So just keep in mind again that these are just disappointing for me. The next book I have on my list is The Retribution of Mara Dyer by Michelle Hodkin. This is the third and final book in the Unbecoming of Mara Dyer trilogy, and this was extremely disappointing for me. So I was not one of the ones that had been waiting 2 years to read this book, so I guess I can say that I was lucky in that respect. Like, I don't know if I would have waited as long as everybody else that I would have been less or more happy with the book. I'm not 100% sure, but I was so disappointed in this book. I loved the first book. It was like a psychological thriller, read like a psychological thriller, so amazing. The second book I enjoyed. It wasn't the greatest one in the trilogy. That one read more like a paranormal romance. And The Retribution of Mara Dyer, I'm not even sure how I can characterize this because it is just a cluster. If you don't know what The Unbecoming of Mara Dyer, what the trilogy is about, it follows about a girl named Mara. And Mara, one night, she's hanging out with a group of friends, and the building that she is in collapses, and she wakes up in a coma, and she doesn't know what happened, and so the entire trilogy is trying to figure out what happened and what is wrong with her. The love interest Noah in here, I like Noah. I developed my love for Noah. I didn't like him at first, but I do like Noah. But in The Retribution of Mara Dyer, I just felt like this book took on more of a romantic aspect that I wanted it to be. Not as romantic as the evolution of Mara Dyer. And I can't even tell you why I'm disappointed by this book because it would be a spoiler, but I just felt like the ending was a cop-out. I felt like it didn't, what ended up happening was that Michelle Hodkin ended up making it more about the romance as opposed to what's going on. I felt like characters didn't act the way that they're supposed to act in this finale. I was so disappointed by so many of the events that happened in this book, and in the end I think I ended up giving like a 3.75 star. It was not what I expected. I was really disappointed, and yeah, so The Retribution of Mara Dyer, I was really disappointed. Sorry. And then the final book, which is the book that's probably going to give me the most amount of flack, is going to be Heir Fire by Sarah J. Maas, which is the third book in the the Throne of Glass series by Sarah J. Maas. Now, I really like Throne of Glass. I also really like Crown of Midnight. But when I got to Heir Fire, which was one of my most anticipated books of the year, I pre-ordered this bad boy. I was really disappointed by it. It's a huge book. It has got a lot of pages in it. This book has, you know, nearly 600 pages in it. 600 pages is almost nothing. This is a whole bunch of different characters. As we all know, this follows the story of a girl named Selena Sardathian. She was in this like kind of concentration camp called Endovier, and she's broken free by the king and the king's son and the captain of the guard, and she is trained to be an assassin, the king's assassin, and then the story progresses from there. I was really disappointed by this book because it felt like everybody, this mostly to me was, let's all get together and talk about how we all are in love with Selena Sardathian. That's what this felt like to me. I really liked the introduction of different characters in the story, specifically Manon. I really liked her introduction to the story, but there were characters in here that I felt like just thrown in just to be a plot device. I just didn't feel like this book needed to be so long, I guess is what it is I'm trying to say. I felt like this was completely filler, and I realized that the series is going to be a 6-book series, so you have to have a book in there that introduces some kind of world building, some kind of filler book. So I feel like this was the filler book in the series, if that makes sense. I was really disappointed by it. I didn't like how everybody was wanting to talk about how they were so in love with Selena. I didn't like how we didn't get in any more proper introduction to the magic system and to the world building, any of that. I was really disappointed by that. I just was really disappointed as a whole by Heir Fire. Now, I will be continuing with the series because I've already, you know, 3 books in plus the novella. So I'm going to go ahead and continue with the series and hope that the next book is going to be something that actually gives me something. But as a whole, I was pretty disappointed by Heir Fire. So yes, those are the 5 books that most disappointed me this year. I know, kind of a dreary kind of topic to talk about, but you know, sometimes you just gotta have something different. If you guys love these books, let me know down below and let me know why you love them. If you didn't, go ahead and comment down below and let me know why you didn't like them. Other than that, guys, thanks so much for commenting, liking, subscribing, and I will talk to you guys in the next video. Bye!